You know, my plan is always the BLT plan, big, lean and tanned.
Let's go.
You know, I feel most at home standing up in front of people. I love making people laugh. I use negativity as a massive driving factor for me. Most people have achieved things in life because someone told them they couldn't do it. And I'd be like, you motherfucker, I'm going to show you. And that would inspire me. If I don't have chaos and I'm left alone, that's when shit gets weird. That's when I really struggle.
Thriving in chaos would be a good description of this result.
Yeah. I'm very energetic about life and what the day can bring me.
Thank you for tuning into The Energy Equation. We are so grateful for you. This show's about energy, something that's challenged in every sense in the modern world. And we love discussing energy with our guests in a way that transfers to real learnings for you. This show is about you. How do you take practical tips to improve energy in a demanding world? And we would love for you to stay with us as we get ever more exciting guests with future shows to come. If you are enjoying this podcast, please hit follow wherever you get your podcast from, because that tells us you love us, and it also means you get notified every time a new episode drops. And also, we love to hear from you. If you've got thoughts on what you want to hear about, then drop us a comment. We're listening, we're responding to you. Now go and enjoy this next episode. James Haskell, what an absolute pleasure to have you on The Energy Equation.
Thank you for having me.
It's a dream. So we've got the introductions bit.
Yes.
Now, you know, I'm stuck on the intros here because I obviously grew up with you as part of the England team that I followed with fervour. 77 caps for England Rugby Union. Great knowledge, did my prep.
Yeah.
Now, sort of modern generation might know a bit about that, but they might know you as a techno DJ.
Yeah.
They might know you as a stand-up.
Yeah.
They might know you from, they might know you from your popular podcasts. They might know you from TV.
Yeah.
How would you describe James Haskell?
God, that is a very, very difficult way to. Well, I don't know actually. I mean, I'd say my predominant thing at the moment is DJing and making music. You know, everything's centered around performance, really, which I think it comes down to me being a massive show off and attention seeker. I sort of whittled it down to, you know, DJing is performing. It's the perfect replacement for playing. It's all the adrenaline. It's you know, serves my need for technology with the DJ decks and the Pioneer stuff. You get the jeopardy, you get the preparation, you get the you know, the adulation, and you get the nervousness at making mistakes, and you obviously have the big performance moments. Then I have the kind of creativity around making music and sitting there and sculpting something. I'm not particularly musical. I never was, but going and working with people and then obviously learning the technology yourself and turning up with ideas and concepts, I think is brilliant. Speaking again, you know, I feel most at home standing up in front of people. I love making people laugh. That's what I really do. I can be quite serious, and you know, some of the books I've written have a serious nature to it, and I think sometimes people find it hard to differentiate that juxtaposition between being, you know, kind of a bit of a Neanderthal meathead, everything you would associate with a rugby player, lads all the time, and then kind of quite cerebral, focusing on mental health, your health, or your body, and being quite honest and open about it. And then kind of we've got the podcast, The Good, the Bad, the Rugby. So it's all centered around performing, and some of them do look a bit they're a bit disparate, a bit separated, but actually they all do sit around a central theme. And I think at some point I will have to whittle it down. But if I could do one thing consistently, it would be the DJing, because it ticks all the boxes for me. I like people, but as long as they're behind a velvet rope.
Well, we're not behind a velvet rope.
No, we're not. Very much not.
That common theme of performance is really interesting and relevant. I was fascinated in your book when you said, again, as lots of people know, but maybe don't try and fill the void of post-professional sport career, and that you'd felt DJing had plugged that gap really, really neatly with a similar level of energizing reward.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm built, you know, I'm a true believer there's only certain things you can control in life, and I sort of boiled it down to four things. You know, how you treat your body, because you're only given one of them, and, you know, you don't have to be an elite athlete, but equally, if you decide to overeat and mistreat it, the check's in the post, it will get you. You might think you're fine now. You might not have diabetes now. You might not have heart disease. You will get it. It's proven. And I think these people who champion obese people, you know, you're doing a disservice. I think it's fine if you're happy in your own body, but actually putting that on a pedestal, do your own thing, but do it over here. So I think it's important how you look after your body. Second is how you look after your mind. You don't really, you know, you should always be trying to expand it and challenge it and work on it and test yourself and get better. And even if it's a cerebral conversation or learning a different language, or you can always get better. And I think that's important. Reading, enjoying, experiencing human emotions. That's why you're basically you're born and you die and you fill your time in between. And humans, because of consciousness, we've created a lot of distractions: art, music, beauty, everything else within that. But we're essentially just on a journey to procreate and carry on. If you boil it down, however romanticized it is, people have created religion to explain all the stuff we can't explain and everything else that's gone with it. So I believe that you've got to always look after your mind, and then how hard you work and how you treat people. And so when it comes to what I do now, I always feel an obligation to challenge myself and to perform and to look after myself and to do things with myself. And actually, my journey post playing has been an interesting one, with kind of, probably not getting my discipline right at times, losing my routine, losing my identity, over traveling, over partying, all the things that you kind of you make mistakes with. I've had to go back and work very hard on it. But I think my one kind of sort of golden ticket through all of it is a level of self-awareness. Like, I'm very, people listen to this and go, Christ, this guy like sound of his own voice. I'm very aware that I'm an acquired taste, and I'm quite comfortable with that. And it's the same way as I know my limitations. I don't walk around thinking my shit doesn't stink. I kind of know, if I'm not in shape, that's my fault. If I haven't slept properly, that's kind of my fault. I have to take a massive responsibility for that myself. And I try to always do like a self-check-in, like once a week, because I obviously do interviews like this, I talk to people, I give out advice, I go and do talks, and then you sort of never want to be the do as I say, not as I do. You never want to be full of shit, and I just always try to focus on that, and I do regularly go look at myself. I take my shirt off and I go, fuck, what am I, I don't like that. And they go, well, have you trained? You're like, no. Have you eaten properly? It's like, no, not really.
I think that personal accountability is a really interesting theme for us to explore through this whole series. But the fact that you've put your physical habits and behaviors as one of the linchpins of your values probably is crucial. And today we want to unpick a bit of that. A lot of there you've talked about some high energy moments and some low energy moments. And I probably want to start by getting into your lifestyle, by setting a framework of James in the modern era, this multi-talented creature.
So it's talented, just
multi-talented creature. Where's your energy at on a sort of regular basis? If we take 100 as unlimited effervescence, 0 as sort of constant fatigue, where are you?
I mean, I'd say I'd sit around 85-90% most of the time. I think I'm very excited by life. I'll be honest with you, and this is sort of like, I'm not Lord Byron walking around like reflecting on the on the tear in a baby's eye and the flowers and the beauty of life and getting and like Keats, like Ode to a Nightingale. Like I'm not walking around with sort of poetic moments going through my head, but it's kind of, I got out this treatment. I'm getting some treatment for my ankle. I've got arthritis in my ankle. They want to fuse it. I went and tried some different alternative therapy that I'm doing a course of it. And I woke up this morning and I felt refreshed because I slept better. And I'm going to look at the results. I slept better, looked after my daughter, got up this morning, focused on my hydration because I'm always dehydrated, went off. And as I got out the car, I just felt really good about life. I was just smiling, did a bit of nasal breathing as I was walking to the car, a bit of mindfulness. I was just thinking, Christ, I am lucky. Like, I really appreciate what I got. And I kind of, it's those moments that I appreciate, because I think what you realize about energy in life is that we all have our goals, but it's ultimately always about the journey, because you never achieve everything you want to achieve. So if you never reflect and also never happy, you just sort of never have those moments. So I just appreciate it. So I'd say I'm very energetic about life and what the day can bring me, because I'm very compartmentalized because of sport. I never look. I know where I want to get to, but I don't ever look at it. I just literally look at my diary today and go, what can I do today? And what boxes do I need to tick into today? And how do I be a little bit better today than I was yesterday? And it's that simple. And because of that, I've always got energy, but yesterday, if you ask me, energy was like 30. I was at 20. I was like in hell. I hadn't slept, but then I sort of looked at how can I manage it? Well, I had to go on stage, so things like caffeine, hydration, tried to get some sleep. I took my pillow with me. I basically, in between moments of performing, I just shut down, just didn't speak to anyone, tried to conserve my energy. But I would say predominantly, 85 to 90%, I'm like loving life. And even though I'm in pain a lot of the time, which is debilitating, the zest for like this, it's such a good place, and you never know when it's going to stop. And that's why I do a lot of therapy, because the biggest thing that controls everything we do is your mind. And that controls how you interpret energy, I think. Because you could have more energy, but it just almost reaches your own personal filters. And physically, you could be in great shape, but you're burdened by unaddressed issues. And that's why when people talk about mental health, it's actually health in general. But the thing that sits at the top is your mind, which then If that isn't right, it affects your physical health. But if your physical health isn't right, it affects your mind.
What will be so interesting to a lot of people listening is that your toolkit for high energy has involved probably more mental strategies, and we want to talk about some of the physical pieces, but that is about your version of gratitude, even though you don't journal it as you should.
I was laughing, like I made it sound like I apologize if I ever sound like I'm belittling anything. It's not. It's more because it's because I sort of live and breathe it. I think some people, again, we talked about it before we went on the podcast, some of the stuff that is natural to me will be unnatural to others. And when people listen to this podcast, they might disagree with 90% of what I'm saying, but hopefully whenever I talk, I always want someone to take one thing or two things that resonate for them. And so, if you're unable to organize your thoughts and your ideas and your filters don't allow you to feel positive about stuff, writing stuff down in black and white is an amazing tool. I used to use it pre-game. I used to write 3 or 4 notes every game, and some of it was dealing with using negativity as a tool, because we talk about positivity, everything's very positive, but a lot of people, I use negativity as a massive driving factor for me, because most of people have achieved things in life because someone told them they couldn't do it, someone criticised them because they couldn't do it. You want to prove someone wrong, you want to be competitive with your mate, and that's important. So I used to use those notes, when coaches, I'd have a quote from a coach, and I'd be like, you motherfucker, I'm going to show you, and that would inspire me. So I did journal in my own format, but because I've been getting therapy since I was 17, a lot of it comes naturally.
It's a brilliant description. And again, it's bringing things that people might think are whimsical or alternative, and these are foundational habits.
Yeah.
But I do want to get into 3 things. Yeah. So I want to hold you to 3 habits. Yeah. So when we look at that high energy output, that 85 out of 100, can you pin 3 things that are consistent in your lifestyle that contribute to that energy?
Yeah, sleep, 100%. The more I look into it, the more sleep is just so important for everything. I know there's that book. I'm awful at. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've tried to listen to self-help books and certain things. I just can't do it. I need listening to something is my escapism. I need imagination, and it's the only way I'm ever mindful. So I've tried to listen to that book on sleep by some, it became sort of
Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep.
Yeah, Why We Sleep, and obviously because Ronaldo said he was doing it and read it, everyone went completely mad. Even I saw it and I was like, fuck, Ronaldo's similar age to me. He looks like a sexy Portuguese man, still absolutely carving up, winning, scoring goals. Well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. It was the best marketing tool. So I have tried napping. I would say that I find it hard with my kind of ADHD, and again, everyone you meet now has got ADHD. But I had it. I've had it since I was 8. I was on Ritalin. I had everything, and it's not something I ever talk about or use to define me. I just know the activity of my mind and brain. I find it quite hard to nap. But sleep and sleep hygiene is, super particular about my mattress, my pillows, and then things like hydration. How hydrated am I before bed? When was the last time I had caffeine?
Have you got a hard stop on caffeine?
Do you know what? Before 4 o'clock. That's it, and I'll only maximum have 3 cups of coffee a day. That'll be it. I try to keep it at 2. It depends if I'm having a day like yesterday, when I know that the only way I'm going to get through this is with caffeine, and I've had to go turbo because I had to go on stage in front of 1,500 people and act like a clown. It's very difficult. So the caffeine, I think, is very interesting. And then you look at kind of what you do to quieten your mind. So I always listen to an audiobook before bed, or I read a different book depending on what's going on. If I come in late, I put an audiobook on, I put a sleep timer on, 10 minutes, I'm asleep within 5 minutes of that, which makes following a book quite tricky because you know where the fuck you are the next time you wake up. There alone is sort of almost like 12 things.
A hell of a toolkit.
It's a hell of a toolkit. But that's what I mean when people say, I just don't know how to do it. It's like you're just not looking at what's in front of you because you're looking at the big picture. So sleep for me is massively important. Diet is the next one. I think it is really, really important. I think what you put into your body controls, and within diet, I'm going to put gut health in there as well.
Really
I'll block them together. I was told very early on by a guy called Matt Lovell, who was the England nutritionist at the time and do stuff with WAS. This is years ago. I still speak to Matt now. And I worked with some amazing guys throughout my career, Phil Lerney and the guys who wrote the Cert Food Diet and all this kind of stuff, Aidan Goggins. And I always go and find people, the best people, that I can find in these different areas and try to work with them, because no one person's got the right answer. So the diet-wise, you told me very early on probiotics were essential to your gut health. And I started looking into it, and they say the brain-gut sort of connection and everything else. There's lots of good people, there's lots of good research about it. I found that if I was having a high stress life and I was eating poorly, your digestion suffered, and you were putting things like lots of caffeine in your body and everything else, then but just by sheer, and also the fact that there's lots of processed food, if you're eating that, you're obviously introducing these things to your body. It's going to have an effect, even if you don't understand it, you can't prove it. It's but logic, synthetic materials, chemicals, but of course your body's going to do it. Now we believe that our body's just a miracle machine that'll process it, but with the rise of cancers and everything else, you can see that we are probably not doing ourselves a great service, and we're sort of just blindly carrying on and going, we've always done it, so it should be fine. But as everything's increasing, we're probably at some point going to have a D-Day where they're going to turn around and go, actually, we've discovered that all this shit is killing you, and we're going to have to stop doing it. But gut health, probiotics is really important. I've now switched on to Simprove, and I believe that if I take that every morning, they might have an element of placebo to it, but I feel like my digestion's good, my bathroom habits are regular, I actually feel healthier, my immune system. When I was playing, I would take probiotics. When I stopped, I would get colds, and I would get ill quite a lot, because I go 100 miles an hour wherever I go, and that at some point have a toll. And as you get older, I had a crash. I where I got it wrong probably 8-9 months ago, when I DJ'd Friday night, flew somewhere, DJ Saturday, did a speech on Sunday, DJ somewhere, I flew to Amsterdam Monday, did a thing for Under Armour, DJ'd Monday night. By the time I came back Tuesday, I was supposed to film a BBC Antiques road trip.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get out of bed. I was broken. And I was that D-Day. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And so we'll come on to the sort of structuring stuff. So that was an issue. And I looked at, again, diet-wise, I obviously was traveling a lot, what I was eating. So probiotics is a foundation. Then into my diet, I always think about, I look at my plate as a pie chart through every meal, and I sit down and I look at the first priority is protein. What is the protein on that plate on that particular day? Chicken, meat, fish. If you want to go plant-based or whatever, what the best source that protein is on your plate. The next thing I think about is what phase am I in the day? What am I trying to achieve? Energy-wise, carbohydrates. That's what I need next. Obviously, I like being big. I think there's nothing worse than either being a massively fat, out of shape rugby player, or even worse, a really thin rugby player where you feel like you've got to set up a Just Giving page because you have to check in that, are you right? Like I met some of the guys that they've got big heads, big arms, big limbs, and all running Ironmen, and they look like they can't support their own neck, and you're like, it's great, I'm sure you're in mad shape, but you look awful. And so I like being big. That's part of my identity, part of my presence, and I quite enjoy it. So carbohydrates for me are important, not because they make you big, but they give you the energy to perform and train, and they're another source of calories. And then the next thing I think about is my fibre. Where's my vegetables from? What kind of roughage have I got? Because fibre is so important, especially, if you don't eat a lot of carbohydrates because you think they're their enemy, bizarrely, you need your fibre because that's key for digestion. And then I look at my fats, whether it's, olive oil or olives or cheese or whatever it might be. So that's what I look at every single meal as. And, trying to eat out like petrol stations and shit like that, you look pretty good. That's saturated fat and that's processed, and the protein's minimal. So you can't ever really do that. There are bits and pieces you can sort of do. So that's what I think of predominantly with those things. And then I think the last kind of bit in my
on diet, just so for those who don't know what a probiotic is.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And I think it's so much in the popular culture now, people do, but it's live bacteria,
yes.
Right? So when you take Simprove, it's a liquid, evidence-based delivery mechanism, putting live bacteria in, and then what you're doing with that is hoping that bacteria sits in your large intestine, and it then eats the fibers that you're eating, which makes that synergy fantastic and drives gut health. And again, for some people, if they feel worse on a probiotic, just quick caveat, then that might be another issue.
Yeah.
But that it's not unreasonable to think that most people would have inadequate gut bacteria because of that hyper-processed, diet that most people are eating.
Caffeine and alcohol and all these things will affect your gut. It's like that's why if you ever think about taking sort of extraneous hormones and steroids and everything else like that, your body's in homeostasis most of the time, which is in equilibrium. If you add a third party, yes, it's going to have benefit, but obviously it's like a peaceful world. It's like the ideal utopian world. If you add something else is going to change, or something else stops. Your gut health, if you're introducing all those things, the perfect balance where they're all sort of very happy, are diminished. So you're trying to add something to make it better, or to balance it back out. With the diet stuff, you really are what you eat within reason, and I think you need balance. Like, I have lived the monk lifestyle. I have lived the dedicated lifestyle. I have done the body transformations. My life has a lot of balance now. What people forget, and hopefully your audience who listen to this will already engage, want to make a difference. Always be wary of people who look down at those who make profound changes and have discipline, because just giving into everything is as bad as having perfect discipline. So you've got gym monkeys who don't ever let themselves enjoy life. They basically have, exercise. I don't know what that term is, but like eating disorder. You basically have an exercise orthorexia. I love you here just all the time. I just follow me around life. I'm just like, hey, what's that? What's the correct term for that? Thanks, mate. Right, go and sit in the car again. So orthorexia, so you have that. Balance is the ability to know, right, what do you do 99% of the time, and what the healthy choices are, but then being able to go, I'm going to drink this night, I'm going to have this food here, I'm going to have that, and then you experience all of it. And I have, whenever time I get interviewed by like The Sun or The Mirror and about a nutrition thing, they go, so do you ever have a cheat day? You're like, yeah, no, well, I mean, I sort of eat what I want. Do you really? Do you eat pizza and chocolate? You're like, yeah, because I know what I'm putting in my body 99% of the time. Do you ever go on a strict diet, or do you ever do any training? Oh, no. I'm not like you. I'm not a gym monkey. I mean, so you've got no balance. You've got the worst form of that balance.
What, your third energizer?
Yeah, fine.
And it can't be coffee.
No, so
that's in nutrition.
So my third, what did I? So I had sleep.
Sleep nutrition.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. My mental health. I don't. Can you class that in there?
Totally. Probably you'd need a strategy.
Right. So a strategy around that, I think, is accountability, and self-check-in, and to get energy. It's confident that you're putting yourself in the right state, because, as I said in kind of my opening remarks, your mood and your temperament really decide how much energy you have, and you will always meet one of the side effects of being clinically depressed is you don't get out of bed, you switch off from the world, you don't feel like you have energy, life is very hard. So that in itself, if you can to reverse that is giving you a whole lot of energy. That is a big block. I'd say I deal with the physical. Basically, I deal with the physical and the practical, or the nutritional. So it's nutritional, it's sleep, and it's the mental side, and that is coming up with some practical tools to how to be positive. But if your mindset isn't right, and you're not feeling well, and you're not processing criticisms and bits and pieces, how can you ever possibly ever think you're going to have energy? And then also failure. I'm striving to follow a couple of career paths. It's very hard if you're not addressing these things. So I'd say one of the biggest tools is looking at it. And when people think about mental health, they think they've got to go and lay on a chaise longue and sort of lay back there and sort of talk about horrific things that happened to them in their childhood, or everything's down to sex, or whether their mother loved them or not. It's not about that. It's just as I've given you tools to look after your sleep. It's your mind controls everything, and it could be how you see yourself. It could be how you interpret information. It could be how you view yourself. It could be addressing doubts and articulating those doubts. It could be giving tools on how to be more positive. And so if you're a very negative person, or you don't have a lot of self-confidence, you may have a lot of negative thoughts. You either happen to life, or life happens to you. You can either keep meandering through life and letting shit buffet you. And as I said to you, things like cancers and deaths and accidents, those things come out of nowhere. And you have no way of controlling that. What you do control is how you treat your mind, how you treat your body, as I've said, but also like how you kind of interpret all these things and what you do about it. And I honestly, I genuinely believe you can either keep walking around going, I have self-doubt, I just don't believe in myself, it's really negative and I can't get up, or you go, fuck this, right, what can I do to fix it? Visualization, do this, and that will increase your energy level to the point where you're like buzzing for life, because you want to be challenged, you want to have fun, and life is just such a rich place meant to be lived. And I know it's easy for me to say as a middle class guy with financial situation. I'm not a mother of three. I don't come from a difficult situation. But there are things that I say that might be completely irrelevant to you, but they have a theme that will work for you. Even if you are in that hell, just sitting for 2 minutes every day and going, life can be better, and this is how it can be better, and this is how I feel like it's going to be better, and this is what I can do. will make a profound difference. You might never get out of where you are, but you can certainly make things better.
Imagine this. There's one simple thing you could add to your daily routine that could help you sleep better, feel less anxious, and even support your hormone balance, all without having to change too much else in your life. That sounds too good to be true, right? Well, here's the kicker. 75% of us are missing out on it. Not because it's rare, but because it's incredibly difficult to get enough of this from our diet alone. It's something our bodies can't store long term, which means we need to replenish it every single day. The foods that used to give us plenty, leafy greens, seeds, whole grains, they just don't have the same levels in them anymore. So who is this mystery hero? It's magnesium. And here's the best part. It's really easy to add it to your routine through a quality supplement, just once a day. Having researched this supplement for years, I personally use Pure Sports Ultra Magnesium. Across their supplement range, every batch is tested, so you can trust that it's clean, simple, and extremely effective. So I highly recommend them. For 10% off, you can use the exclusive Energy Equation discount on their site, puresport.co. Use the code EE10 at checkout. We generally talk on the show about 3 things that rob you of energy.
Yeah.
Arguments. Okay.
Arguments. Relationship stuff. Arguments. I think. Things like I've got stuff with my actual family. I'm separated from my partner. We're co-parenting. And doing it kind of really well for my daughter. Those are all very stressful. They take your energy because you end up having to emotionally go to places you don't want to. I'd say social media is a massive drain, but for that sole reason that it's full of judgment, it's full of hate, it's full of negativity. It's almost like self-harm, going online and looking at comments. Well, that for me, especially if you Google yourself and went on the news, I learned never to do that. Fucking hell. I did that once after a game on my first debut game for Wasps, and I literally sent me sideways. Obviously I didn't realise I had such self-confidence issues until after that process where I made my debut. Rob Howley, the captain of Wasp, blamed the defeat on me on live on Sky. I was only 18 at the time. I got absolutely hammered by the media. I went on one of them forums, and it was all sort of the great unwashed absolutely bashing me, and I was like, fuck. And I basically then had to do loads of therapy, and that really sort of shone a light on just how I never really dealt with criticism, and that was a real sort of thing. And it doesn't, when you look at me now, when I talk, it doesn't sort of marry with that. You wouldn't think I'm like that, but in particular areas. You're meant to feel sad and happy and depressed. You're meant to be shocked. That's the pathway of the rich tapestry of human emotion. We're now going, well, if we don't like that, we're going to take that off. Well, that offended me. Good. Like every library's got a book that's going to offend you. That's why we have a rich tapestry of content that you're meant to digest. But we're now sanitizing everything. We're going back and changing history because we didn't like it. Well, it's history for a reason. If we're doing it today, we haven't learned. Like anything I say to you, I make mistakes. I get it wrong all the time. And that's one important thing to tell any of the listeners. Everything I'm telling you is the ideal situation. Do I fuck up quite a lot per week? Yes. Do I go wrong? Do I have an emotional reaction? Do I try to comment? Do I write a comment? Do I make mistakes? Do I not sleep properly? Do I not eat right? Do I not train? Of course. Do I give into criticism all the time? Do I feel bad? Do I wake up feeling shit? Of course. These are ideals, but I know the toolkit to fix them. That's the point.
So those two are great.
And then I think the last one I'd say for me is travel. I'd say I actually really enjoy travel, but the toll it takes on you is pretty astounding. I'm a big unit. I'm slightly lighter than I was normally, but I'm normally about 125 kgs, 6'3". You're traveling, you're sitting. I've got, I had spinal surgery. I've got arthritis in joints. Traveling, time difference, deprivation of sleep, being uncomfortable. The rigors that air transport puts on you. That for me it can be a real energy sapper.
Brilliant. So we've got positive 3. We've got, again, that great relationship with sleep, or that control over sleep, understanding nutrition as a toolkit, specifically the gut. We've got mindset and some practical tools to change not necessarily the world, but the way you think about the world. Drains, we've got arguments, hear that entirely. We've got social media, which if that's not in someone's negative 3, I'll be surprised. And travel, which again, an absolute load. So should we talk a little bit about some of the results that we've captured?
Yeah.
Because you kindly wore this monitor
yes.
For 3 days. Now, the challenge we've got with you is sort of set up by the first introduction. What is a 3 days in James Haskell's life look like? So we've got a 3 days. So the 3 days we got are the 3 days, and there's some interesting stuff in there. You did again some live shows. You had some not necessarily travel, but you had some childcare responsibilities.
Childcare, but I had lots of driving up and down. We had meet and greets with people, then rest in between. Yeah.
So a pretty abnormal normal. The normal is the new abnormal. So the monitor we've got, again, is a heart rate variability monitor. It's trying to take an objective marker of a few interesting things. The first one being, do we think you're at risk of excessive physiological stress?
People don't really... I had a journalist come and do like a week with me once, and he was like, I honestly don't know how you do it, but I know that I thrive in chaos. Like if I don't have chaos and I'm left alone, that's when shit gets weird. That's when I really struggle.
Really interesting. And thriving in chaos would be a good description of this result.
Yeah, that's it.
Because it is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So we're looking at physiological stress, and we're looking to see, are you spending too much time physically ready for a threat? And as a result of that, potentially too little time physically recovering and restoring energy. So that's question number one. Question number two is, on the nights we've captured sleep, is that sleep restorative? Is it doing the job it needs to do? Question number three is where does the interface of fitness and physical activity play into your energy levels? So we're going to get an overall score, and then we're going to be able to score stress, albeit we're using it slightly inappropriately, sleep, and we'll look at physical activity. And so we're going to match that first and foremost against your score of 85, going back to your elite performance days and seeing a low score there and thinking that's a problem. Yeah. But your score overall is 42 out of 100. Yeah. Now, there's a good reason for that, and it's down, ironically, where we'll start, which is physical activity.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting in the fact that these 3 days, and you flagged it to me when we spoke before the podcast, you haven't had the time to physically be able to go and train.
And also, where within regards to training, one of the things I changed because I was aware that I wasn't always getting time to go to the gym when I'm on tour because I'm in the car, was I walked everywhere. I would park further away and walk. I would take the stairs. So I would try to do that because ordinarily in life I was probably getting 12, 13,000 steps. Some days I was getting 3,000, and less because I was physically not doing anything. So it is interesting on these 3 particular days. Normally I would try to walk everywhere to do it, but even here I'd drive, I'd wake up, get treatment, go to the theatre, sit in a dressing room, walk to the stage, get up and down, and you're sitting. Even when I'm DJing, I do 25,000 steps standing still. But when you're doing the kind of the Goodbye Rugby, you're sitting on a sofa. So these are in particularly less days than you would normally do it. It's mad.
Absolutely. And there'll be people who are pleased to hear that. Yeah. The fact that, you have transitioned from where your movement was your job to now it's not your job, and you have to squeeze it in like everyone else. Now, in amongst saying that you didn't move much on those days, it does do a measurement of your cardiovascular fitness, which is not a score out of 100. It's a metric that we've discussed called VO2 max, and it measures how strong your cardiovascular system is at delivering oxygen to the tissues. Brilliant marker for performance in athletic terms, generally 5K, 10Ks, marathons, endurance events, but also a really powerful longevity marker in the fact that the higher the score, the longer people live, which is great. We want general population to be ideally above 40, and that's 40 millilitres of oxygen per kilogram per minute. And you ran a couple of different tests, and they unified on a result of 44. Now, that is a very good result. It'd be lower than when you were a professional athlete. We both understood that. But the interesting thing about that fitness result is it's millilitres of oxygen per kilogram. So you're clocking in at the moment slightly lower than your fighting weight of 125, but you've got to deliver oxygen to 118 kilograms of tissue. So to get that much oxygen to each kilogram still represents a really significant cardiovascular system. Why I think that's relevant is it's probably drifted compared to other forms of fitness in the fact, as I sit here opposite you now, I know you're not neglecting your strength training.
Yeah.
I say that as a red-blooded male, happily married, but I can tell you on embracing...
On Tuesday nights, it all goes out the window. Yeah.
But principally, you clearly have huge lean tissue still, strength the bedrock. You've got a very clear, again, treatment protocol for your injuries and mobility, etc. So sometimes we see that cardio is the one that drifts in lots of athletes where strength and power was their focus rather than being a natural endurance athlete. And looking at that result and saying, okay, that's sort of middle of the range, would that be an area that's probably drifted?
Yes, I tell you why, because again, factoring in the routine into my life, and I've got a PA now, and I had to restructure my diary. And when I retired, I was leaving no time to eat, no time for training. I was filling my diary up with work. I wasn't factoring in travel. I was living in Northampton. I was in the car for 4 hours a day. And when I embarked on my MMA career, I was still 4 hours in the car. But I was only doing that, so I got unbelievably fit in that period post rugby, probably fitter than I've ever been.
That's interesting. Because lots of people would say, does that mean MMA is a more physically demanding sport?
Yes, I'd say, but again, it's different energy systems, or different, not energy systems, but different ways of being fit. So, I could run, up and down a rugby field, hitting people, getting up and going back in the game. But if you asked me to run, a marathon, I don't know what I would do. I wasn't built to do that, or I wasn't trained to do that. Then you would become good at a discipline like a rowing machine. You can get excellent at rower. I put you on a Versa climber, you'd be in hell. But even though your rowing was really good, it's just obviously how you utilize your body. But MMA, for me, was the much tougher, physically demanding sport than anything I've ever done in my entire life. But no running. But, oh my God, cardio-wise, wrestling-wise, getting on and off the floor, and then the fitness circuits, and then obviously cardio, doing Versa climb. We do 5-minute blocks with a minute rest. And that's the Versa climb is my favourite piece of cardio equipment, but it's also the most disgusting. It's horrific. And so they would put you in a hole. And now, the one thing I miss is binning myself. I like to bin myself every now and then. But what I did is I looked at what were the priorities with limited time, what aesthetics. My plan is always the BLT plan, big, lean and tan. That's basically where I'm. The tan's failing at the moment. The big sort of medium, lean's okay. But the big, lean and tan plan is where I want to be. And that was my priority. So I'm not doing as much cardio. I've started doing jiu-jitsu again, which is picked up. I'm doing one-on-ones with them, so it's hard, but it's not mental. But I've just started going to cardio again. Like the other day, I did a session. I did 5 minutes on an assault bike just to see where I was, and I'm going to start putting that back in because mentally, for me, I want to be active, and I struggle with being sedentary, and that's why like these days of performing, I get the adrenaline buzz from performing, but I'm not physically testing myself, so I don't feel like I'm utilising my body. So that's when I would literally taking stairs in airports, never taking the lift, walking up and down, and I think that's really important for me. But I would say one area of deficiency is definitely cardio at the moment because it doesn't serve me any purpose, so it's fallen by the wayside, aside from actually mentally I need to do it and I want to do it, and I think there's nothing better than putting strain in your body. I think it's a nice centering thing with the endorphins, and also working hard. Everything in life's better after you've thrown yourself to or binge, absolutely binge yourself really, and that for me is something I missed.
Really interesting, and I think that sense of cardio is the least revealing probably of the fitness modalities. If you don't move well, you creak. If you don't lift heavy, you don't get the BLT plan. Yeah. I'm only eligible for the L of the BLT.
L. You'll never tans. I'm never sure tan, mate.
He is the furthest.
BLR tan, big, lean, and red. You could do that.
Absolutely murdered. But so that plan will reveal itself. Yeah. For context, if we put your total cardiovascular system into my body weight, we get a VO2 max of somewhere close to 60, and suddenly you're at the Olympics, in an endurance event. So, the challenge of being a big guy is you need a big engine to deliver sufficient oxygen to those tissues. So that will always be an area of relevant focus. But that, again, we captured 3 days where life got in the way. And I think that a lot of people with juggling kids and a lot of people juggling, sort of multifaceted careers will feel quite relieved to hear that. So we've talked about the power of sleep, and again, in amongst every stage of your career, but certainly now as a multifaceted character, we'll keep bringing it up. I love it. So on the movement score, we got 11 out of 100. That was purely because of those 3 days there wasn't much movement. Your fitness score again isn't out of 100, but that score really is a great cardiovascular fitness for anyone. But of your size, it's significant. It's probably lower than it has been. It's probably lower than it will be.
It'll be interesting now as well to see. Because again, this is kind of encouraged me to go, right, what do I need to kick on and do? And it was simple as taking gym kit in the car with me and a pair of trainers and never having an excuse and going, right, I'm just going to do this and make sure I've always got it, because I've got a David Lloyd membership. So there's always somewhere near David Lloyd, you know what I mean?
Perfect. Action taken. I'll sign that up. You'll sign a contract. Yeah. So the next bit is probably, to look at sleep. And sleep we score 43 out of 100. Yeah. And that's probably your sleep is the best representation of different challenges on different nights, because we ebb and flow. Where we look at this graph, where we look at sleep quality as really being, we want on a sleep graph your body to go into physiological recovery. So the colours on the graph, red is when your body's ready for alertness. It's physiologically stressed. Again, there's a nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system that's running, it's governing the inside of you. And it means you are vigilant, your physiology is primed, you're ready to take on load, you're ready to solve problems. So we've got red predominant through the day. When we go to sleep, and this was last night, we see that what we're aiming for is just before you go to sleep, we want your body to go green.
Yeah.
Because that's that sleep hygiene you were talking about, where you're creating routines and rituals that says to your brain and to your body, do you know what? It's time to disengage. So we see a really clear pattern.
Do you know what's interesting on that timing? So my show finished at 10.
Yep.
So I got in the car and I sat and listened to an audiobook all the way back until I got home at 12. And on that first 12 at Spike, that's when I lay in bed.
Beautiful.
You can just literally see that
Yeah, real time. And you should be the poster boy for Audible there, because that what that's done is that is your strategy again against your legacy of having ADHD and recognizing some things where you just need to sit in the stillness may not work as well for you.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested again where breathwork sits into that. But certainly we see a body that goes from being switched on, highly delivering, to completely disengaged. And then as you go to sleep, you go into rich recovery and you stay in recovery right until you woke up this morning and sent me a text where it went red again. Yeah. But fundamentally, that is a really strong pattern of sleep recovery. So if we had 3 nights like that, we'd be getting 100 out of 100. Yeah. What's so flip about that is if we go to the night before, this was the Sunday night, we see that we get no physiological recovery during sleep.
And that's why I felt utterly awful.
Yeah.
As well as run down and slightly ill. Because that was, I had to go to a hotel and I ended up I got to the hotel about 12:30. I hadn't booked, had to go and do a park in the car park, got into bed and the room was warmer than usual. I had it was a different bed, but I still took my eye mask, I still took the mouth tape and stuff. And actually for the first part, I think I slept till about 4 or 5 in the morning. I thought I'd slept, but obviously hadn't, or slept well.
Really good point. You slept. So this isn't measuring sleep cycles, as in you would do with what we call polysomnography, where you put the leads on the brain. And actually that's where a lot of modern watches would estimate sleep cycles. This is looking at physiological recovery, which matches up to that. So you are asleep here and your body is resting, but you're not recovering. No. And actually, that creates a challenge that if we look over the course of the 3 days, we're interested in this idea of, are you balancing the volume of time you're spending giving out energy with the volume of time energy is coming in? And we run an energy current account here.
Yeah.
And we say, look, when there's red on the graph, physiologically that is expending energy on a physical basis. We are a battery. You give out and then you recharge, and you give out and you recharge. And we're looking to say that over the course of the 3 days measured, does that line end up lower than when it started? And what we can see is over the course of the days, there is a good volume of physiological recovery. We'll come to stress in a minute, but your sleep is your salvation. And these 2 nights here prop up the crap night.
Yeah.
So, and here again, one bad night is very tolerable by human physiology. Weeks of bad nights is tolerable. Yeah. We're designed to have babies. Yeah. We are designed to go through emotional conflict. We are designed to go through famine. We're designed to have the resources to not worry on a night-by-night basis whether we're getting this 100%. And what we've got with you is, over the course of the 3-day measurement, you have restored more energy than you've expended, despite the fact you haven't done as much movement as you'd like, despite the fact there's this overlying tone of stuff going on, despite the fact one of your nights was absolute junk. You flagged to me that you'd slept badly. And again, that one night won't break you. No. But, you're running at such a high level that it certainly impacts you. And the fact that, the following day you take, again, all those positive steps, you control what you can control in terms of sleep time, sleep rituals, light, dark, caffeine use, is great credit. Yeah. So, why the score on sleep isn't higher is just because we captured what everyone dreams of, a real night, a hotel room, disrupted environment, and again, coming off the back of a stimulating show. So we've got, again, movement, we've got sleep. The next area is what we call stress and recovery, where you score your highest. You score 72 out of 100 here. And that's a really good score. And the challenge with stress is, in most cases, people think of stress as sort of fight or flight, these big explosive moments. And interestingly, I'll show you what you're like when you're on stage, because you're ready to rock when you're on stage.
Oh, really?
Oh, you're ready to kill. But you kill in a performance way, right? So that's exactly what you want. But most people's stress isn't this sort of these huge explosive moments. It's a low grade, never being able to switch off.
It's like chipping away at you, isn't it? Yeah.
It's death by 1,000 cuts. And so what I'm always looking for when I look at stress is saying, is James able to go into physiological recovery, not just in sleep? Like, because if it's just sleep and then you sleep badly, it's like, you're resting on one crutch. Someone kicks that away, you're over. And what we want is 2 crutches. We want recovery in the day and recovery during the night. And again, when we look at the Saturday, what we see is brilliant. We see this green pattern throughout the course of the day where your body is going into energy restoration. It's going into physiological calm in the middle of all that's going on. Now, that doesn't reflect emotional state. That doesn't reflect, whether your body is mulling on things or not. What it means is your body isn't anticipating a big threat. And that means you're restoring some energy that makes dealing with what's going on easier. And again, easier, not easy. What we see is when you hit the stage later, so your highest moment of stress.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know whether you got a standing ovation at about 8 o'clock.
I think I was telling I think I was pissing myself about some mad story about Yeah, and we were all in hysterics, like just about some guy who used to mix drinks, and I was talking about one of the things at Royal Wedding. And it was just, and I could think because I embellish the stories as I go along. I think it involved me saying that he pulled the top of a corgi off and emptied it out into a drink. some completely outlandish thing in the context of the story. So yeah, that does that. Yeah,
that's it. And here is the other beauty of looking at data: stress is good.
Yeah.
Right. So, you can look at this and go, oh God, what awful thing happened to you at 8 o'clock? You're having a wonderful time. So again, the narrative around modern stress is misconstrued in the fact you want moments of performance. You want that adrenaline. What you said, again, particularly in your book, and recognizing you want that affirmation, you want those moments on the stage, feed on it. That is a good sign of someone who's doing his thing and adrenalized and exhilarated. What's fabulous about this result is that night still you go into recovery after it. And that, to me, is representative of the tools and the rituals that you've put in place that allows you to decompress from what is an extremely, arousing event in the medical word, and to being able to go into sleep recovery. Not perfect, and I think this might be the night that.
No, this was actually there's one because we had so Friday night was a bad night. That Saturday night, that was a good night. Sunday was an awful night. Monday was a Monday was a good night. Yeah. We ended up getting the 4 nights. Well,
God, you gave me that last one. Otherwise, this would be a different story.
That night, the heart monitor fell off. I woke up in the night and was off me, and I was like, yeah.
So that's those pockets here where there's no reading. What we got on that first night is interesting again, just coming back to sleep and the fact that you were listening out for your daughter.
Yes.
And, and what we've got there is you suppressing the ability to go into deep sleep, because in deep sleep, you wouldn't hear her.
No.
So what we get with lots of young parents, is they sort of kill the deep restorative sleep because they've got to listen for the monitor, they've got to listen for the door latch, whatever it might be. And here we can see that you're periodically alert throughout that first night. So that
I basically woke up on the hour every hour, and I started then dreaming that I was hearing things that I wasn't hearing, and then so it wasn't ideal.
There'll be more dreams because you're in that lighter stages of sleep. And again, you can compensate for that. So even though you're not in those deep sleep cycles, you still get a good volume of recovery that night. So being a parent to a crying baby in the night creates a huge challenge to great sleep cycles and great energy restoration, but you can still do it. Or you can still recover despite the fact the environment makes it difficult to do so. So we've got a guy here who has got a great cardiovascular fitness level, which is on the up, and per kilogram is really significant. We've got, again, someone who's using sleep as the bedrock of their energy, and you cited it, and we're seeing it. And we've got someone who's combination of perspective, probably mindset more than anything else, James, we're seeing, able to pull you out of a stress state into recovery despite what's going on. Everything that's going on, you're still able to go into physiological recovery, not just in sleep, but also in the day. And we see glimpses here of you loving, being on the stage and being a showman.
I will say, I think that's the perfect terminology that we worked on hard with my therapist, was the changing of state. So where I said in one of the books, the last one, where focus goes, energy flows. And if you and I are having a starting a row and someone made a joke and a laugh, it would break it and stop it. If you're able to change state, and that's one of the tools I had to use and why I got into music, was if you are preparing for 8 games a season, which they used to do back in the day, you can do that on emotion alone because you're always up for it. Trying to do 30, 40 games a season with relationship issues, body issues, media issues, performance issues, everything, whatever it might be. How do you consistently prepare? Well, I started using music, a curated playlist that would have an emotive effect. And actually, I did a talk for a company and I said, look, if your boss pisses you off, every time you have a conversation, a home interview, have a Spotify playlist that takes you out of it. Just go back to this and put it on it because it will change your state. If you have I can't bear what my partner's saying, playlist, use that. I have a situation where I sort of try to check in with like what state I'm in and what I know will get me out of it. Like if I'm really stressed or bothered, I know I can go and sit down with it's interesting. Obviously things were challenging at home, but I would go and have to and I'd have to perform because a lot of my public facing stuff was, and you could be in the worst state ever, but then I have to go and deliver a performance, and then your performance, you'd look like you were smiling happy, and then that doesn't look like you're sad and upset. And so, but I'm able to do that. And I think it's the same thing with like, simplicity of also what changed your state. Listen to a song, listen to an audiobook, going for a nice coffee, those moments, seeing a mate, calling someone up, that changes stuff quite quickly. Even having a moan and going, I'm going to, just bear with me, I'm going to bitch. The very fact you've bitched for a bit and then changed it, that changing your state I think is a real secret to life, because if you wear what's going on all the time, you'll never get those green spikes in the day. It's ability to literally, I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I eat, I'll have my laptop set up and I'll watch Netflix and I'll eat. And for that moment in time, all I'm engaged in is that thing. And then I put that down and then I change state and I go back into work mode. So all my life is consistently doing that all the time.
And I think we see that there. So again, to summarize you, I think, you asked that question.
Nightmare.
Dream. People, you said, I think people wonder how you do it. And I think, we've seen some really insightful pieces around the blend of physical, mindset, real habits and behaviors of controlling what you can control. We see so much to take in terms of exercise programming, nutritional habits and behaviors, and certainly that sleep hygiene work, I think, is transferable. But that sense of, controlling what you can control, taking your autonomy over that, I think is a brilliant lesson for me and hopefully for some people listening. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it, James.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to The Energy Equation. We're so grateful for you. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following or you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast from so you never miss what we're bringing you next. And if you're new here, there's actually an amazing library of episodes to dive into. We've got endurance machines like Spencer Matthews and sporting icons like Sir Steve Redgrave. Each episode is packed with practical insights to help you feel better and live with more energy. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time on The Energy Equation.